What's up, everyone? Coach Braydon here with Look Like You Lift, and welcome to the Look Like You Lift 15 podcast, where we're going to teach you how to look like you lift in 15 minutes. I'm really honored to bring on one of my mentors and one of my coaches, Brandon Hale, who is a physique transformation coach and the owner of Alpha Lean Mastery, which he helps guys get their six packs without having to do any kind of like restrictive dieting or having to, be miserable. So Brandon, before we kind of get into our topic today, why don't you kind of give some insight of, what you do and kind of your background and what kind of got you into wanting to help guys get their abs?
Yeah. So, I mean, to sort of summarize it, you did a pretty good job. I help guys get their six pack. I don't think there's anyone out here, any guy out there who does not want six pack abs, right? So that's kind of the focus. Just sort of like the name of your brand, Look Like You Lift. I kind of do the same thing. I like to help guys get to the point where they look like they lift, right? So very physique focused. And what got me into that is just basically my own personal transformation, right? I think that's sort of the story with most coaches, right? Like we transform our own physiques, we go through our own journeys. It's obviously life changing. So and it's addictive. So yeah, eventually I got to the point where I was tired of what I was doing. I was an electrician before. That obviously wasn't what I love to do, and what I love to do is fitness related, right? And now it's at the point where I'm coaching other people full time for the last 3 years. And yeah. So I've been doing it for the last 3 years and loving it. And yeah, here we are. So that's kind of the cliff notes, I guess.
Awesome, man. So now I wanted to bring on Brandon because he takes a different approach when it comes to nutrition. We've had several guests who come on who we've talked about basically how we can lose weight and how we can get shredded by applying certain nutrition principles. The way that I talk about, the way that we do things is we cut out the fast food, we cut out the snacking, and we have, specific meals per day. Brandon takes a more tracking approach to like if it fits your macros, or using MyFitnessPal to make sure that we're staying in a caloric deficit or a surplus. And so I really wanted to bring him on here to talk about how can we realistically do that to see results. So Brandon, why don't you go ahead and just start off, like what's the benefit of kind of taking more of a if it fits your macros approach, or if I'm wrong in how you do things, feel free to correct me, but like, what's kind of the benefit of doing things your way?
Yeah, so I really don't think our approaches differ as much as it sounds like you think. Really, like mine is just more of like a little bit more. I'm a big fan of like a more calculated, like data-driven approach. Mm-hmm. So like what you do, like so cutting out junk food, cutting out fast food, so that's more of like a quality approach, which is great. It's a little more, I guess you could say, like simplified. Mm-hmm. But the what I call my nutrition coaching strategy, I call it I kind of branded it the perfect diet formula. And so I do pretty much the same thing as you, like where I start clients where they're on a meal plan where it's all like whole foods. So there's no fast food, like junk food, candy, anything like that. But then I like to transition people. So we take that meal plan and we start swapping things out. So we use the app MyFitnessPal, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about before. I know you've probably heard about it before. And on there, what that allows you to do is just pay attention to the things that are most important when it comes to diet, that are going to move the needle for you the most results wise, mm-hmm. which is your calories and your macronutrients, right? So obviously, like eating whole foods is going to make sticking to your diet and hitting those targets that are important a lot easier, which is why your approach is great, right? If you eat nothing but whole foods, you make sure you get enough protein. You're going to be taking care of those more important priorities, right? Which is the calories and the macronutrients. But where flexible dieting is advantageous and keeping track of your calories and your macros, is you start to see that, hey, like I can throw things into my diet that aren't necessarily healthy or like quality foods. Like for example, for the last it's been super hot here. I don't know if it's hot where you are, but I've been having a
I've been
Slurpee,
seeing
like,
your slushies.
yeah, I've been having a Slurpee like every day after my workout. And a lot of people comment on those stories and they're like, oh man, like that's like, there's so much sugar in that. That's garbage. But the reality is it's 150 grams of carbs. And after I consume it, yeah, like it doesn't fill me up like 150 grams of carbs worth of oatmeal or potatoes or a more satiating whole food like that would. And it doesn't have as much nutrition, but that's the difference, right? Like I could eat like that every day. I could eat, fast food, stuff like that. And as long as I keep track of it and I'm making sure I'm hitting my targets, I'll still get the same results as if I'm eating whole foods. The difference is it won't be as easy, right? Because I'm not going to be as full. I'm not getting I'm not going to feel as good, right? So there's a balance. So that's the reason I like to start people on the meal plan that's more strict, more whole foods, that kind of thing. And then slowly show them like, hey, you can add in a bit of this other stuff as well. And you don't need to feel like you need to avoid like all these unhealthy foods that you enjoy. So it's just like less restrictive and a little more like educational, I'd say.
Yeah, so that's really cool. So it sounds like what you start people on with your perfect diet formula is you start with some restriction. You start with like these are the foods that are going to be the most advantageous, and then once they have kind of the discipline behind eating this way, we can then start to bring in some of the foods that they enjoy, because now they have an understanding of how to kind of budget their calories accordingly.
Yeah. And another big part of following the meal plan in the beginning is it makes you make changes very quickly, because like everything is outlined, right? So it removes all the guesswork in the beginning. Basically it's kind of like the best of both worlds, right? Like a meal plan is advantageous because especially like a well-structured one with whole foods is advantageous because it removes all the guesswork. It gets you eating like right, and you get to experience the effects of that. So like you'll start feeling a lot better. Most people, even if I start people on a calorie deficit, they see that like, they're eating all this food and it makes them feel full, yet they're losing weight on it because, as whole foods, they're a lot more satiating. Mm-hmm. But then after a while with a meal plan, if you don't learn how to get flexible with it, and you don't have you can't see like what the calories and the macros are and what's actually producing the results, and you just feel like you're following it because these foods on it are magical or the amounts are magical or whatever, and then you get bored of it, well then like you're going to end up either being on that meal plan or off that meal plan, and off that meal plan means back to eating like crap, right? And then the downside of flexible dieting is if some people when they start with a flexible dieting approach, and I've done this with clients before, and some do well, some don't, but it can be overwhelming, right? Because if you don't understand like what calories and macros are and like what foods to choose to hit those macro goals, it can be a little bit confusing and overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So that's why we start with the meal plans, because it removes all the guesswork. It gets people on track quickly, it gets people seeing results quickly, feeling good quickly. And then as soon as they start getting tired of like a certain food on the meal plan, then right away I show them how to swap that out and use MyFitnessPal to make everything flexible.
Got it. So every person's going to be a little different, but do you see like an average turnaround time of where they can do that, where they can safely go from adhering to a meal plan, meal after meal after meal, to allowing some flexibility and getting into more of a tracking based approach?
Yeah, it's completely different for everyone. And that's why I find it works so well. Some people, they already have been playing around with MyFitnessPal and flexible dieting for a little bit, and just, they're not sure if they're doing things right, but they know how to use the app and they know how to swap out foods, and they understand sort of how to flexible diet. They're just not sure if their targets are set properly or how to adjust them.
Sure.
So with that type of person, they'll start, and on my meal plans, I have macro details for every single food line item, for every single meal, and for daily totals. So clients like that, they'll just take the macros off the meal plan and they'll just start flexible dieting right away, right? And then we're in. Other clients will follow the meal plan. So like some people just really like to stick to the same thing every day, keep it simple and not change things much. And for clients like that, they'll follow the meal plan for, for weeks, maybe even a few months before they get tired of it. And then we move into the flexible dieting. So it really allows me to, it really allows the clients to kind of go at their own pace, and I just sort of guide them. So once they're ready to, if a client wants to, they're more of the person who likes the structure and they're okay with eating the same thing every day, they prefer that. I wait till they get to the point where they're tired of something, and then we move into the flexible dieting.
That's awesome. So we're really focusing on establishing habits first before we start moving into that. I like that. So how do you start to work in, I mean, with your approach to this, are cheat meals a thing? Are like social eating, like how do you budget that in with your program?
Yeah, so that's something I kind of do. It's sort of like on the side sort of thing, right? So like the nice thing with flexible dieting is like you get to learn that like, oh, not all cheat meals need to be cheat meals, right? Like there's certain things that are pretty simple to fit into your diet, right? But when it comes to things like family gatherings where you're going to be eating a home cooked meal, and it's difficult to, if not impossible, to figure out what the calorie and macro composition of the meal you're eating is, right. Or like a restaurant, some restaurants that can be difficult as well, like especially like sit down restaurants. In that case, I teach my clients a strategy called protein fasting, right? Where, so basically we're trying to reduce the cheat part of the off-plan meal, right? I don't really like to call them cheat meals. But basically we're doing,
I don't like that word either. It kind of puts like a negative connotation to it. Like, oh, I'm doing something naughty.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're going to purposely overeat, then that's a refeed, but which can be advantageous as well, which is kind of another topic. But basically the protein fasting, what it is again, it follows the diet priority rules, the principle of the diet priority pyramid, where calories are the most important factor when it comes to your results. When it comes to macros, protein is the most important macro. So the way the protein fasting strategy works is I didn't come up with this, but what you do is ideally you would kind of go as long as you can in the morning without eating at all. And then all of the meals that you eat throughout the day that are leading up to that off-plan meal, you eat only protein. So it can be a little bit boring. So like what I would do on a protein fasting day is eat just egg whites. So a big serving of egg whites to get a big serving of protein in. I like to put some like, maybe hot sauce on it and mix it with some spinach. And then maybe have like another two or three really lean servings of protein. So like chicken breast, extra lean, ground turkey, or an extra lean, like a lean red meat or extra lean ground beef, bison, something like that, and add veggies to it. So now you've taken care of the top macro, which is protein. And I try to have at least 80% of my total daily protein goal, 80 to 100%. And then I'm basically banking all of my carbs and fat. So that way, when you go into your off-plan meal, you've taken care of your protein. So chances are when you eat that off-plan meal, you're going to go over your protein goal, which is fine. And then now you have all the calories from your carbs and your fat banked. And you could probably, you could go ham on that off-plan meal and eat whatever you want, go for seconds, thirds, have dessert. And you're either going to hit your calorie target, or you're going to go over it just slightly, rather than if you were to just eat like a normal day's worth of meals and then have that cheat meal, you're going to be over by you're going to be over by 1,000 plus potentially.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So essentially it goes back to just budgeting, just making sure that we can, we're either making withdrawals or deposits from the calories to make it fit.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let me throw a different scenario at you then. Things are opening back up here in America. I don't know how they're looking in Canada, but things are opening back up and people are starting to go camping and going on vacation, and vacations may be for like 5 to 7 days. In some instances, they're going to be eating a lot of fast food or going out to eat, or maybe they're going to be doing like barbecues and those kind of things where, again, it's kind of in a position where you can't really weigh out or measure what you're putting in your body. Is there a way that we can fit in the flexible dieting in with that on vacation, or is it best to just try to get back on track afterwards?
Yeah, again, it really depends on the experience level of the client, right? And kind of where they're at in the program, where they're at in their transformation, right? So so the way that I approach that with clients is just sort of, again, just based on their experience level, right? So if a client's new and they're not really comfortable with the flexible dieting yet, basically I'll employ a approach more like you use, and I'll tell them, try to avoid, not avoid, but try to keep the fast food consumption to a minimum. I would tell them to use the protein fasting as much as they can. Try to prepare as much as you can in advance. So like if, for example, like again, so protein is the most important macronutrient to consume. So like try to bring, maybe some protein bars, some protein powder with you, so you can kind of snack on that kind of stuff throughout the day. And then sort of try to the best of your ability, employ the protein fasting strategy on as many days as you can. So that's more of like the simplified approach. And then for people who are more experienced with tracking their calories and their macros, they can often, consume a lot of fast food, eat out a lot, and keep track of that stuff, right? So it's just kind of finding the balance, and it's going to be based on like your experience level. And then for some people, depending on where they're at, so if I have a client who's in a maintenance phase and their calories are higher, then you can even have a diet break. You can consider that week of vacation a diet break. So yeah, it's really important to educate the client on like where they're at in the transformation process, and whether it's fat loss, maintenance, whatever. So for certain clients, that having a diet break and just not worrying about your diet at all for a week can be advantageous, right? Both mentally and physically. So yeah, it really depends on where they're at, what their experience level is, where they're at in the transformation process.
So it sounds like, so basically the answer to every single one of the questions that I've asked you today has been education, has been giving the knowledge to the client, which is what you focus a lot on, is, not just like telling them what to do, but here's why we're doing it. Yeah,
exactly. And one of the big problems that causes so many people to struggle with their health, their fitness, their physiques, and their nutrition specifically, is they think that like things are black and white, right? So if I go on vacation and I eat a bunch of junk, that means I undid all my progress that I made over the last 3 months, which is never the case, right? It's a long-term, lifelong lifestyle change that you're making. And even if you do totally screw up and you just eat junk the whole time and you gain 10 pounds, that does not mean that you undid a bunch of progress, right? You can usually, even if you totally screw up like that, you can make up for it in the next week, right?
Sure.
So yeah.
I like that. You also brought up like if you gain 10 pounds, like that's honestly, you can get back on track. I always get clients who they'll gain like 5 pounds from having like a family food, and it's like, oh my gosh, I like gained 5 pounds of fat, and it's like, it's a mathematical impossibility that you had over 16,000 calories past what your maintenance is for you to gain 5 pounds. So just relax, give it a few days.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, we're out of time, but I appreciate you coming on here and giving us some insight on how to make flexible dieting work. If people wanted more information of how the perfect diet formula works, if they wanted more details, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So the main place I hang out is in my Facebook group. So what is the link? I think basically what you can do is you can type in, just copy and paste in your search bar, alphaline mastery.com/group, and you can join my group for free.
Cool.
And I got tons of free resources. I do live streams every week. All those live streams get documented. So that's kind of my world, and you can join for free and learn more about what I do in there.
That's awesome. And we'll have the links for Brandon's contact info. We'll have the link for his group and everything in the description. Thanks so much for watching this, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either me or Brandon. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend, and we'll see you in the next episode.